you do anything involving creative ideation, brainstorming, or problem solving, you've probably been in a situation where the ideas just aren't flowing. It can happen when you're under pressure from a deadline or feeling boxed in by a brief. Or maybe you're just burnt out on a particular topic. Writers, musicians, educators, content creators, creatives at any level can experience blocks in their process. And if your job relies on this ability to generate ideas, a lot of them, this can be a problem. So I started to look a little closer at these moments, what I was doing differently when the ideas were flowing and when I felt stuck. Turns out my blocks were happening most when I was putting too much pressure on quality and quantity at the same time. Not only did I want to generate a lot of ideas faster, I wanted each and every one to be brilliant. Almost any time I'd been stuck, I'd been trying to make every idea the best before they had a chance to be bad, good, or just okay. I was trying to be the critic and the curator all at once. Then, years later, Scottdickers, founder of satirical news The Onion, resurfaced this critic versus curator thinking when I read his book, How to Write Funny. But instead of the creator and the critic, he calls them the clown and the editor. Just imagine the traits that embody these roles. The clown is fun, thoughtful, insightful, curious, emotional. Editors are critical, practical, serious, rational, and accountable. Can you imagine one person trying to use all these traits at the same time? Seems like I was making things a lot harder than they needed to be. So now I was making a more conscious effort to improve my process to where one hat at a time. I then found I needed a better system for capturing ideas. One of the most widely known strategies for this is to carry around a notebook with you at all times to develop your own library of back pocket ideas. But if you're like me, you'll end up with piles of illegible moleskins, one never-ending Evernote, or countless mini notes scattered across Google, Apple, or whichever proprietary service is the fewest taps away. And that's where the problem was. With all the incoming ideas, passively or for a project, quality was getting hard to find or refine from all the quantity. The clown doesn't like to follow rules. He's messy. So when I needed to find a particular idea or type of idea, I had to navigate my clown's mental maze to get at them. AI has been increasingly helpful in helping me organize those thoughts, but I'd prefer AI wasn't a band-aid for any of my clown's silly behaviors. What if I could just climb over the walls of this mental maze, then use AI to give my editor superpowers instead of just meeting the status quo? I'm going to share some of the tips that I use to achieve this using Obsidian and a few plugins. With these tips, instead of a maze of ideas, I have an idea machine or assembly line, so that when I'm wearing the editor hat, or stuck, or just need to pad an idea with some extra thinking, I can curate quality because my ideas are cataloged and easily accessible. Let's get into it. But first, just a quick note. Other apps or services besides Obsidian might let you use some of these tips, but in my experience, nothing is as efficient and flexible in bringing all these tips under one roof, not to mention being completely free and future-proof. And one more thing, I found the system works especially well as someone with ADHD, mainly because while this condition can be super annoying at times, it can also be crazy powerful. On one hand, my flow is easily broken. On the other hand, I'm also easily inspired, resulting in a burst of ideas for just about anything. Not all good, but not all bad. Sometimes brilliant and sometimes incoherent. But because my ideas come in bursts, by the time I write down the first one, the rest have often left the station, leaving me with a kind of internal idea FOMO. I needed a system to capture as many ideas as possible, as fast as possible. One more thing. I've included links to other videos with instructions for basic Obsidian setup. But if you just want to start capturing ideas, I've also included a link to download my pre-made Obsidian Vault with everything already set up. Then you'll also need to enable Obsidian's Daily Note plugin. This is a built-in plugin, so you'll find it in the core plugin settings. Here's what my settings look like. The next thing you'll need is the Advanced URI Community plugin. Grab it from the link in the description, or search, download, and enable it from Obsidian's Community plugin settings. What this plugin does is it lets you send text into Obsidian from anything that can URL encode text. I don't want to worry about the technicals, so I use Apple shortcuts to do this. And again, if you use Apple Notes instead of Obsidian, you could make a shortcut to add text to these notes without Obsidian or this plugin. But to follow along, you can download my Apple shortcuts for Obsidian in the description. And here's how the shortcuts work for my iPhone's widget page. This is the first idea I want to capture before I forget the second. Next up, we'll get into the sorting and curation of ideas. Where am I capturing ideas so I can find them later? And what type of an idea is it? Is it for a particular project, a brief, a personal story? Now, I know what you're thinking. Tags solve this problem. And they do. Tags are nothing new in the realm of sorting ideas, and tags are a big part of this system. But when combined with the Daily Notes feature and another community plugin, we take tags a step further. First, I don't want to care about where I save my ideas. With the Daily Notes plugin, Obsidian automatically makes a new note every day, and almost all of my ideas come in through these daily notes. So in those moments of inspiration, I only need to care about documenting the idea, not where to put it. Second, I do want to worry about what the idea is. This is where tags come in, but not just any tags. You need a core list of tags that fit your process. For me, I use a selection of 10 tags: thoughts and memories, ideas and opinions, jokes and sketches, stories and essays, and anecdotes and lessons. But wait, one of your tags is just named idea? Yeah, in my process, that works for me. If your work is more specific to one area, you might have a more refined list of core tags. For example, for anything related to my storytelling podcast, Big Giant Heads, I use these same tags nested under a parent BGH hashtag. But the important thing to know is that this list of core tags will be different for everyone, and establishing and sticking to your system is crucial for automating and finding your ideas later. That's what we're going to cover next. Now, there's a lot of great community plugins for querying your notes, but for me, these plugins were kind of overkill, and while Obsidian has built-in syntax to embed notes within notes, you can't add, remove, or edit tags in those embeds. So I made my own plugin to solve issues like that, and more importantly, fits my automation workflow perfectly. Search for the community plugin Tag Buddy or grab the link in the description. To demonstrate how Tag Buddy boosts the power of tags, let's look at 2 idea capturing scenarios. First up, idea type and project inboxes. Now, because I do a lot of different things in my work, ideas can come from anywhere and for just about anything I'm working on. But for the sake of simplicity, we'll follow a simple writer's flow. I'm out with my daughter and she's begging me for a lollipop. Suddenly I'm reminded of my own childhood when I knew a kid that used to chew his lollipops. And then I remember that same kid also sucked on his chewing gum. I love memories like this. And I'm sure I can find an anecdote, lesson, or joke in that memory. Or maybe I can use that kid's behaviors to help describe a character in a story I'm working on. Meanwhile, my daughter is now screaming at me because, lost in thought, I still haven't given her a lollipop. The ideas are about to leave the station. I tap the voice shortcut and dictate the memory. But what should I tag it? The memory isn't the idea is what I can do with that memory. This is where my core tag list comes in. I tag it with hashtag joke and hashtag BGH story, and just in case I don't end up using it for those, hashtag memory. And that's it. I've now freed my mental buffer for another idea burst, or more importantly, finding a lollipop for my daughter. I wonder if we taught her not to chew lollipops, or did she learn that on her own? Anyway, you know what I'm not wondering about? Where I saved that idea. Instead, the next time I'm working on a story, looking for a funny character trait, or simply looking for inspiration, this little memory will be waiting for me. Let's see how that looks in Obsidian. There it is, in my Thoughts and Memories note. In this note, my Tag Buddy plugin automatically rounds up all the paragraphs with the memory hashtag. This plugin also gives me options for each paragraph. In this case, I use the Move to Section shortcut buttons to quickly sort the memory into a subsection of this note called Childhood. Then, sometime down the road, I'm writing jokes and I'm feeling stuck. I pull up my Jokes and Sketches note for any new material. This time I decide, though silly, that Lollipop Kid memory is more of a joke fragment or potential setup, so I can tap the tag to remove it or use the Remove Tag button. But it survives this round as I can imagine it being part of a joke setup. Later, I'm outlining stories for the podcast. I check the BGH project-specific inbox. I see this tagged paragraph in the story inbox. That's right, I remember the idea I had to incorporate this memory into a character for a story. So this time I use the Move to Note button to move this memory to the note for that story. Now, before we move on to the Kindle Highlights use case, let me show you how to add these tag inboxes to your notes. Assuming you've already installed and enabled Tag Buddy, within any note, type the tag you want to make an inbox for, and then switch to preview mode, Command-E or Control-E, then hold Option and click the tag. You can change these shortcuts from the plugin settings. From here, you have options, including a few other tag actions that you might find useful as you refine your own core tag list. For now, select Create Summary from the drop-down and hit Submit. Switch back to Preview mode, and there you go. You can also use a very simple code syntax to do the same. Check the Tag Buddy plugin details for full documentation. So the reason I wanted to share the Kindle example was because a lot of ideas come from other sources, books in particular. In this case, whenever I highlight something on my Kindle, the Kindle Sync plugin automatically pulls all those highlights into a unique note for every book I've read. That's crazy powerful on its own, but this plugin also lets me add a book/highlight/new tag to every highlight as it comes into Obsidian. So just like my other inboxes, I've used TagBuddy to create a new highlights note with a tag inbox that pulls in any text with that tag. And tapping the tag progressively removes the deepest tag first. In this case, the new part. This is perfect for me because most of the time I don't have anywhere I want to put this highlight yet. But when I remove the new part, it will now automatically be pulled into another highlights inbox that looks for book/highlights without the new part. And down the road, I'll have that note automatically add additional hashtags to each highlight based on the book or highlighted text. For now, though, let's look at one more use case. First, make sure you're back in reading mode, Command E, and then right-click while holding Command or Control on any normal text in one of the highlights. From here, you can add a new tag, pick from your core tags, most recent, or search all of your tags. Why not just type the tag, you say? Because these highlights aren't actually in this note. They're being rounded up with TagBuddy from all the book notes with this hashtag. This is one of the issues I mentioned earlier. Just like native Obsidian embeds, you can't actually edit dynamic content. But with TagBuddy, you can add, remove, or edit tags in just about anywhere. Let's recap. And if you stick around, I'll go into a few bonus use cases for how I navigate and interact with this system using another community plugin, a core plugin, and AI. And let me know if you found this useful, or if you have a better way of doing all of this. First, we use Apple Shortcuts and the Advanced URI plugin to help me capture as many ideas as possible. Next, we went into how, using those core tags with TagBuddy, you can create inbox sections of your notes that pull in all the paragraphs with that tag. Lastly, I gave 3 powerful use cases that I use every day to find, curate, and manage any idea that comes in, whether it's my own ideas or ideas from my Kindle highlights. If you're still watching, be a buddy and hit the like and subscribe button. All right, so these next tips are more about building my second brain in Obsidian. First up, the graph view. Whenever I tell people about Obsidian, I always show them this feature first. It's an automatically generated map of all my notes, tags, and links, and how they all relate to each other. That said, it's the local graph view that I find more useful in navigating my ideas. Basically, it shows all the connections with the current note. Let's take a look at how the local graph looks when I open my Jokes and Sketches node. Not only does it show any linked notes, it shows all the linked tags. In this case, it pulls all the funny filter tags I use when brainstorming joke ideas. Another community plugin, reverseprompter, is an AI plugin that uses ChatGPT. What it does is it takes the content of the current note and asks you a question to keep the ideas flowing. I use it mostly when brainstorming, but it also works great when you're feeling lost or burnt out on a writing project. But what do you think? Is this all you need? Or do you think having tag inboxes makes this more useful? Let me know in the comments. Special thanks to the Obsidian community on Discord, and also to Tag Summary plugin, which was the basic foundation for TagBuddy. Check out all the links I've mentioned in the description. Check out the podcast if you want to hear more of me talking, telling stories. Thanks for watching. This list of core tags will be different for everyone, and establishing what's wrong with my mouth? And establishing what's wrong? And establishing and sticking to this system is crucial for automating and finding your ideas later.